You are watching Access LaPorte County Channel 97. Coming up next is the November 20th meeting of the Michigan City Port Authority Commission. You can find more information for this meeting at www.accesslaportecounty.org.
The Michigan City Board of Directors meeting. I call the meeting to order and looking for approval or corrections to November 6th meeting minutes.
Make a motion to accept the minutes.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. No public here. All right. You want to just go right to these guys? All right. We're ready for you, Charles.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Charlie Keene, General Insurance Services, and Matt Weber, my associate, also with General Insurance Services. We're here this evening to present our annual insurance renewal for the Port Authority. And I'm going to turn it over to Matt to go through the details.
Good evening, board. Thanks for letting us come through and explain what we ended up for the program renewal this year. It's January 1st renewal, so we're happy to get these in a little bit ahead of time. Moving right along here, if you got any questions at any point, please stop and ask. I know most of you have gone through this plenty of times. As Charlie mentioned a couple minutes ago, as you see red, that is a change that we will touch on. For the most part, we'll just kind of high level move through each coverage section, answer any questions as they come along. We got the GIS service team there on page 3. Charlie, myself, Stacey Rakowski, and Jen Fitzpatrick in our claims office. And then moving on to the scope of service, kind of overall layout of general insurance services, resources available through us, our agency, and we do for Port Authority. And then page 5 there, you just get into the named insured schedule, being the entity that is the Michigan City Port Authority, and then the location schedule going through each building and location that the Port Authority needs coverage for. Yes.
As you go through, would you please make a significant reference to big changes or things that are happening, and don't just kind of gloss over. Let us know some of the major changes in your rate structure or things that have happened within that particular line item. If something happened.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
We'll do that. Page 6 there begins with property coverage. You'll see that total blanket limit at the top. The chart below there foots to that and breaks it out. You'll see that we had just under 10% exposure increase, meaning we took the property values and increased them to 9.86%. The building we're in right now, in the main building at Trail Creek Marina, were increased based on reports we've ran that kind of keep up and outpace the inflation we're seeing in the property market. The rest of the business, personal property, and smaller structures have a typical 2% increase. This building, we went from 714 to 808, a 13% increase, and a 15.5% increase on the location 3 dry stack building at Trail Creek. Property is the toughest market we're seeing the last year or two, and as we know with inflation in materials and what have you, it's important to keep up with that. So, moving on, page 7. We got marina coverages, liability, marina operations, legal liability. This is care, custody, control of the boats, clients' boats. The machinery and equipment, which puts to the middle schedule there, $512,608, which we went over with Tim and Marianne. Unscheduled equipment is anything that maybe is purchased and not added, $25,000 limit there. Protection and indemnity, the P&I coverage, that is essentially liability when you're in a boat, if there's any kind of liability situation that comes up operating a boat. Then the own boat schedule is the bottom schedule there, we have no changes. The 130, 239 total value of the barges and skiff. Questions?
We only have one barge. Oh, no, there's a second barge. Never mind.
Moving on to page 8 is just the crime coverage. Included in the Hanover package, we have 100,000 employee dishonesty, which includes that ERISA coverage. And then any thefts of money and securities inside and outside the premises at $10,000 limits. Forgery and alteration at $30,000. Then a computer and funds transfer fraud coverage at $10,000. No changes from expiring. Which moves to the general liability. We have a $2 million aggregate limit, $1 million per occurrence. And then the exposure schedule are total revenues. We do break these out in our own files, but we have a nice round number here. And then marine operations, that is, I believe, 1% written down. About 3% increase from 2.8 million to 2.9 million. And then no change to the rented space, 2,500 square foot, and the 1 acre vacant land outside. Moves on to business auto. Yeah, no changes throughout the year, vehicles or trailers. There were a couple drivers list changes, which we keep up to date. And we have the $1 million combined single limit liability, which includes uninsured and underinsured motorists, higher than non-owned auto, and some med pay coverage. No changes to this line. Which brings us to page 11, which is the workers' compensation. Statutory coverage in the state of Indiana, $1 million limits for employer's liability. The experience modification there took a significant drop as we moved away from a larger loss year. The years of that takes into consideration, which was highly favorable for the renewal rates, which then takes us to the exposure schedule. We were able to increase payrolls overall. You'll see there with the renewal rate in all categories dropping, which is a trend we're seeing in the, what you could say, softer work comp market right now. So that, coupled with the experience mod dropping, was very favorable in the workers' comp line. Questions? Takes us to the bumbershoot, which is the term used for essentially an umbrella or excess coverage in the marine world. We have $4 million total with a $10,000 self-insured retention. That goes over the top of the business auto liability, general liability, marina operators legal liability, the P&I, and the work comp employer's liability. All right. Moving to the public officials, directors and officers coverage. This is in the middle of a 3-year policy with Cincinnati Insurance, good for the next year through January 1st, 2025. It's advantageous to lock in those rates when we can for a few years. $1 million limits for the public officials. Employment practices liability and those EEOC type claims have a $1 million limit. And $5,000 of the retention or deductible for each claim. They do throw in some workplace violence coverage of $100,000. Unfortunately, it's a rising trend that we're seeing. More people wanting to at least explore beefing that up or a standalone policy, which you can get to later on in the recommendations section. Questions there? Takes us to the storage tank pollution. Got 2 storage tanks here. We have $1 million per pollution incident, a total of $1 million. A $5,000 deductible. And you can see the schedule there, the premium basis is the one 4,000 gallon tank and the one 8,000 gallon tank. Underneath that would be cyber liability. No changes from last year. Which then takes us to page 15, which is the premium summary. The package takes into account the marine operators' legal liability, the general liability, and the property, as you can see there. And then you have the auto, the work comp, the bumbershoot, the public official, storage tank, and cyber. We are just under a 3% total increase, 2.97, which is taking the exposure increases, the payroll, the property values, the revenue increases. It was very favorable for what we're seeing in the marketplace. In the middle there, we break out the few lines of terrorism coverage that are optional to elect and can be rejected for that total amount there. And then at the bottom, you do see we do break out the close estimate there of where it broke out the 2.97 total increase. You can see that rates were down, and then we took advantage of that, beefed up some coverages on the property side, and then kept up with our exposures of payroll and revenue, and shook out to that 2.97. Any questions?
Yeah,
Yes.
why didn't things go up more? We got a $2,000 increase in the rate, in the premiums, right? 88 to 90?
It did go up to $2,000 and change there, but as the bottom kind of shows, it was more of a exposure increase, meaning the things that we're covering rather than the underwriters taking rate. So we're getting more coverage, and we're being charged for that rather than the underwriter just saying I'm going to increase rate X amount.
Well, I just would have thought with the way the economy's been, the inflation and all the, everything else going on, I would have looked towards, pushing an 8 or 9% increase in total from 88 to 96,000 or so. I'm pleased that it came in, just curious. Good management?
Yeah, I mean, your losses are good,
Yeah.
so the underwriter sees that favorable. And you've been with Hanover, the main carrier of this whole program for quite some time.
Right.
And they are the leader in the marina world as far as insurance carriers. So all those things combined, because you're correct, property in our industry is horrible. Coming off of a horrible catastrophic year in 2022, continuing that trend into 2023, rates are going up. So all things considered, we're very pleased with this renewal. It's not the best one I've delivered this year.
Good answer, Charlie.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Jumping to page 16, where you, for consideration, we did get an alternate storage tank liability quote. It's about half, it's about $428 savings from the current carrier. You see a $678 total annual premium. The one caveat is that they doubled the deductible. So you have more skin in the game. If there's event of a claim, has never been a claim, knock on wood, with these tanks here. But you do have some savings up front for a $10,000 deductible as opposed to the current $5,000. So we wanted to include that for comparison or discussion. And also, the workplace violence we mentioned a few minutes ago, we do have markets that offer standalone, more robust, complete policies, $1 million limits, up to $5 million limits. It would require some underwriting application work, but we have pretty close estimates, anywhere from $3,000 to $6,000 to get that in place depending on the limits.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that we have to talk about this, but your current policy at $100,000, I think we'd be doing a disservice not to explain that risk and possible exposure that pretty much every business or organization has these days. So $100,000 probably, if you have something major happen, is probably not going to be enough for those additional costs you would incur in the event of a violent act of some nature. So we thought we'd throw it on there for a discussion.
They catch that. Everybody understand that? I did not. Could you give me a little more detail on that?
Yeah, so essentially, if you have some kind of violent event happen, it could be an active shooter, it could be some kind of, intentional act that causes, for instance, some kind of emotional distress, it could be employees involved, something of that nature. It's gonna pay for any types of extra costs, like hiring a consultant, public relations person. It's gonna give you some counseling for the current employees and possibly some of the clients if they witness it or something like that. Also pay some death benefits to survivors. Anything else that may be extra over and above what your normal insurance would cover. Obviously, if there was some type of an explosion, your property coverage would pay for any building and property that's been.
You said that now we have like $100,000 coverage?
Correct.
Could you tell me where that is?
Yeah, it's in the management on page 13. You go back to the management liability.
Okay, workplace violence.
Yes, sir.
There's no deductible on that, just you have 100,000 of additional expense, which is good.
And you're suggesting that we consider going to $1 million to $5 million?
Yeah, I would say yes. I mean, that's kind of, for a standalone policy, that's kind of the lowest you can buy is $1 million. And you can go up higher than 5 if you didn't think it was necessary.
Is 500,000 available?
No.
Just one?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, the premiums aren't overly expensive for
okay,
that, so that's kind of where they start.
gotcha. Thank you.
And just to finish up the last couple of pages there, we kind of have a rating breakout for each company that is quoted here, and financial strength and stability. They kind of have, we only work with A carriers, and these are all A or above carriers, and then the financial liability there in the Roman numeral shows surplus on hand, so strong carriers. And then the back couple pages are just kind of the enhancements of the property form that we usually include, just kind of some throw-in good news that round out the enhancements there in over property forms.
That's a lot to look at. Coverage, yeah.
No changes over what you currently have.
Thank you. Comment?
Go ahead.
Just to the board, I think we ought to consider both of these, the $10,000 deductible, and that's shown in red on page 16, and then also consider or have a discussion downstream about maybe $1 million coverage for an extra $3,000. I'm not suggesting we do that. I'm suggesting we have a discussion about it downstream. And that can be, if the board feels that's something that we want to do, we can add that at any time.
Yeah.
Okay, that would be my suggestion, Mr. President, that we consider talking about that at a later date.
I'm very surprised that these renewal limits and deductibles have gone up so much. I mean, it's, why is that?
Short one-word answer, inflation. Everything costs more to rebuild. So So.
I thought they had pretty much had inflation in check right now.
We had a year worth of it.
Yeah, I mean,
Shush.
I'm no expert by any means, but I can tell you stuff costs more than it did even a year ago. And so we're just kind of playing a little catch up since it's been a year since we talked, so.
I'm not surprised by any of it.
One question I do have on page 8, like regarding theft, and forgery and computer fraud, is there any ability to bump those up?
Sure.
A little bit? We'll obviously get back, but, I think with the incident recently that happened in Michigan City at a fast food place where people were getting their cards stolen, and I think that was about $15,000 that they did. Just one thing for us to consider. We're at 10 and 30,000, but we might need to think about, wire funds and that stuff's happening so much nowadays. So, just something for us to consider
Okay, that was which one on page 8?
on page 8. And that's all I have at the moment.
Anybody else?
The situation that she was talking about was credit card
The fraud.
fraud.
Yeah, fraud, credit card fraud.
What does that come under? If something like that should happen here, what line would that come under?
Well, I'm not exactly sure what the situation was. Was it
It's
employees
basically,
stealing credit
yeah,
cards?
employees were taking credit cards information and then they used it and put it into a prisoner's fund.
And
So it was real easy to figure out what they did, but
Yeah.
that's where the money went.
Okay. I do remember reading about that. If the Port Authority is responsible for the release of somebody else's data,
Mhm.
i.e. theft, that's gonna be covered under your cyber policy. You have $1 million for that
Okay,
already.
I just want
Now,
to,
having said that, they're probably gonna do some kind of chargeback thing. So chargebacks themselves aren't gonna be covered, but I assume the Port Authority isn't making any fraudulent charges, so I think the cyber is gonna cover what exposure you guys are
Yeah.
referring to.
We're more worried about the person using somebody else's card to pay for something,
yeah.
that involvement.
Yeah, in that case, I mean, the ultimate consumer is protected by the credit card company, so,
Just want to make sure.
yeah. Good question.
You have anything, Dan?
I have no, I thought it was
Few things that we want to talk about. I mean, evidently, we won't okay this tonight, is that correct?
I would rather just push it off and have us think about it and then bring it back, put it on a schedule to talk about as an item in the coming weeks or months.
You're talking about the two options.
Well, we got to do it before the first of the year.
Yeah.
That's fine, whatever. I just think it's important enough to think about before we jump into it. I'd like to run things like this past the harbor master with the president's agreement and just, see what we got. Our other people here on the board, obviously Amanda knows more about this kind of stuff too. Just talk about it a little bit. That's why I asked if we needed to do it right away or wait, so.
So we could approve everything like it is and make an adjustment to those two other policies.
So,
Correct.
So,
I mean, on the tank pollution, we would need to know if you want to switch out carriers, take the higher deductible and take the savings.
to me, that makes no sense.
You never had, yeah, we're throwing it as an offer. I mean,
Yeah. To me, there's no reason to put us out there for extra 5,000 for 428 bucks. To me,
Yeah, I
that
mean,
doesn't make any sense.
The tanks are getting older, I guess.
Yeah. Which is, yeah. But that means I only have to pay 5 if something happens.
True.
For $428, that's better money on your investment, all
Yeah.
said and done. I mean, I appreciate it.
There isn't much savings here.
No. There's a lot more liability and expense,
Exactly.
as far as I'm concerned. I don't know if anyone else sees it the same way, but.
I agree.
So really, the only thing the workplace violence is one we can come back to and decide what we want to
You can
do.
do that anytime you want to discuss it throughout the year. We're happy to come back.
Yeah.
If you'd like to have us as a guest to hammer that out in more detail. We can send you more information. I tell you what, we'll pass that on to Mary Ann and Tim.
Because as long as we do this by February, we're before really kick things back up again.
Yeah.
I'm happy with the increase, couple thousand. If it's appropriate, I'd make a motion to make the changes that they suggested. Or, excuse me, just go with the premium increase they suggested. We get that off our plate and worry about additions or corrections later on.
I'm comfortable with that.
Okay, I'll make a formal motion to that. Then I make a motion that we approve the increases, the total increase from $88,044 annual premiums, various, to $90,662. Is that correct, gentlemen?
Yes, sir.
Correct.
And with the understanding we might make adjustments.
Second.
Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we got insurance for next year.
Good to go.
Checks in the mail, guys.
Thanks to Tim and Mary Ann for their help through the process.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
So you have more information on that, be glad to.
Yeah, we'll circulate like that to Tim and Mary Ann, and then they can circulate it to the board.
Perfect.
And hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving and great holidays if I don't see you before that time.
Matt, good to see you.
Be safe this Saturday, you guys.
Always safe.
Safe this Saturday, huh?
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Moving on, reports from the harbor master.
All right. Since last time, all the boats are now out of Washington Park Marina. We've pulled all the boats out from Trail Creek. We've put all the inside storage inside. We're currently finishing up Christmas lights out front here on the portion that we take care of. And I expect they will be turned on December 2nd. That's a Saturday. One other item that I should have brought up last time, Fish Camp would like to have a promotional horse and buggy event during the Festival of Lights, which of course runs then from December 2nd through basically the first week of January. And she would like permission for a horse and buggy ride to pass through our property on December 15th or 16th and 17th as part of a restaurant thing there while the Festival of Lights are going on. But other than that, that's all I have, unless anybody has any questions.
Same.
Do you think this is a good idea that needs board approval for the?
They are looking for board approval, and yeah, I think it's fine. Over the years, there have been various horse and buggy rides as part of the Festival of Lights, so I don't see it as a problem.
No big potholes for them to look out for. The horses could get stuck in. Well, as long as they're safe, we're good with it.
I'll make a motion to approve this.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, Mr. Ferguson, budget, financial oversight, and review of approval of the bill.
Okay, good. 2 pages plus the summary sheet, okay? Why don't we just take a look at the detail? There's several little things here, totaling 21,000 and change. Credit card expenses or services, Eland Financial for $2,386. System security for a little over 2,000. The big one is topping off our tanks, I imagine, or getting to where we always want them to be. Fuel for 7,000 and change, and probably the final lawn care of the season for $2,975. That total comes to I'm just checking it here. Okay. That comes to $21,628.37, and I believe in addition to that is the second page that has $5,150.70, which is credit card charges that we've done on a card, and then the Department of Revenue, that's sales tax sending back. I believe, yes. So anyway, those totals come to $26,779.07 if you add up those 2 pages. And with that, I'll make a motion that we pay those bills as stated.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. Well, Johnny kind of burst your bubble there. He took all the insurance information from you.
Yeah, that's good.
Port operations personnel, there's not really much going on. Nominated committee, I'm gonna put Sam, Bruce, and Amanda on the nominating committee for the election. For
You have a chair, is somebody running it?
chair, Sam, you're the chair. For that, well, you have nothing else to really cover. Mr. Messina, Board of Communications, Special Events.
I have nothing to report.
Mr. Manor, Master Planning Special Projects.
No, I have nothing to report. I was gonna report on the buggy rides, but our boss here says we took care of it.
Alrighty. Ms. Buettner, Advertising and Public Relations.
Nothing new to report.
Mr. Zach Noon had family issues, so he wasn't here tonight. General insurance, we took care of that. Table subject signage, and we're pretty much almost covered on that. Alright, so we won't take that off until we're covered. And nobody else came other than Sam has something.
We talked about it, a few insurance things. Is that something we need to remember to bring up, to talk about, or did we take care of it?
So we'll talk about the other, he'll send that information so we can look at it and see if there's more value, any credence to
Okay.
why we should.
That sounds good to me.
That's what we really wanted to do. Alright, and thanks for the cameraman, he showed up, he's our guest today. So, alright.
That old business, that would be old business, what you said. That should be put under old business, is what you said.
Yeah.
Okay.
So put it on
Yeah, that sounds good.
insurance, old business.
December 2 meetings.
Oh, yeah, we're considering we want to do just one meeting in December, move it to the 11th,
It was the 12th, wasn't it?
12th or 11th.
What's one of those days?
We'll check it.
The 11th.
The 11th, yeah, December 11th.
Yeah, it is the 11th. 4th and the 11th.
So we're just going to cancel the 4th and just have the 11th for December.
Well, we need a motion to do that.
Who's going to make that motion?
Make a motion, we have one meeting in December and have it be December 11th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
There we go. All right. Okay, we don't have anything else to cover, do we? Think we're good?
Sorry if I butted in.
No, I'm glad you reminded me. Would have slipped out. People's been hearing the fourth and mad.
Yeah, and then in the paper.
I make a motion we adjourn then.
Second.
We're adjourned.
Good, I can go finish watching up the video game.
So you got that right for the tape?